It could certainly be argued which one, but either the Gulf Wars in the 1990s or the invasion of Afghanistan following 9/11 is when the world officially began a new form of warfare. It took years, but in 2007, developer Infinity Ward revolutionized the first-person shooter landscape by releasing their take on the conflicts of the modern world, Call of Duty 4: Modern Warfare. Not only did it popularize the idea of shooters being set in a modern war instead of a historical one, it also completely changed the way online multiplayer suites worked by introducing light role-playing game elements to unlock better gear and weapons the more you leveled up. AAA FPS games, and even non-FPS games, have felt the impact of this game ever since, and 2 sequels were released in 2009 and 2011. Each new title upped the ante even more, turning a realistic war simulator into a Michael Bay summer blockbuster action fest. Call of Duty as a brand couldn't have been on a higher high, but starting in 2013, they made their first missteps with Call of Duty Ghosts. The team at Infinity Ward that had helped craft genre-defining games had jumped ship in 2010 after legal troubles with Activision to create Respawn Entertainment. The team that remained just wasn't the same, and the poor fan reception of Ghosts over time is evidence of that. It didn't help matters that Treyarch, another Call of Duty developer, continued to chart the series into more and more outlandish territory with Black Ops 3 and 4. By the time Infinity Ward was up to the ante again in 2016, in a bid to stay relevant, they decided to say,
"Screw this. Let's go to space."
Common speculation is that a large reason Infinite Warfare sold many copies at all is because it was bundled with a remaster of the 27 classic Modern Warfare. To make matters worse, by 2018, the brand ditched the campaign mode entirely due to behind-the-scenes issues in favor of a trendy Battle Royale mode. While the 12-year-olds that were just barely old enough to convince their parents to buy them an N-rated game were eating up the wall running in epic victory royales, other fans that had grown up on more realistic and grounded entries in the series were not happy and had found other games to play elsewhere. Activision tried getting them back in 2017 with Call of Duty World War II, but disastrous microtransactions put a negative PR spin on that game that turned away many at the last moment. Now we're caught up to modern times in 2019. Infinity Ward is once again the developer behind the current entry. And this Infinity Ward is much like the Infinity Ward of old, rehiring several key staff members that helped launch Call of Duty's popularity into the stratosphere. Instead of merely going the easy route by doing a sequel to one of their previous titles, they decided to take a look at what's changed in the 12 years since Call of Duty 4's release and create a new, built from the ground up, more modern take on modern warfare.
House, you have execute authority.
Bravo 6. Going dark.
Unlike Black Ops 4, this new game doesn't feature a Battle Royale mode and reintroduces the campaign, rebooting the story of Modern Warfare and fan-favorite characters such as Captain Price. Multiplayer, of course, returns in dramatic fashion, and for the first time since 2011, Spec Ops also returns. Starting with the campaign, players control a variety of characters. One of them is Alex, an undercover CIA agent that goes wherever the big bosses at Langley point him. Another is Kyle Garrick, an SAS anti-terror operative who ends up with Captain Price after a deadly terror attack in the heart of London. These 2 characters comprise the majority of playtime throughout the campaign, but flashback missions will also briefly place you in control of Farah, a freedom fighter from the fictional Middle Eastern country of Urzikstan. These characters all come together to confront a rogue Russian army general known as Roman Barkov and the extremist group Al-Qatala, a combination of groups such as Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and the Taliban. A high talking point in the new campaign is that it's taking Call of Duty back to the serious and grounded roots of Call of Duty 4 while throwing in more shades of grey into the mix. The dev team want you to feel like everything that happens can be found in real-life headlines today. This works better than intended in some cases, as that mere days after the game launched, the ISIS leader was killed by US Special Forces. One mission midway through the campaign has a combined force of US and British Special Forces tracking down the Al-Qatala leader and executing him. Instead of ripping its plot from the headline, it seems like the headline was ripped from the plot of the game. Another mission is blatantly based off the 2012 US Embassy attack in Benghazi, giving Americans who remembered watching the coverage on TV an extra sense of dread. The theme of the story overall is a question: where do we draw the line in terms of the rules of engagement? If you take the gloves off, how dirty do you get? Garrick and Captain Price are at the center of this conflict, with Price saying,
When you take the gloves off, you get blood on your hands, Kyle. That's how it works.
Where do we draw the line, sir?
You draw the line wherever you need it, Sergeant. At the end of the day, someone has to make the enemy scared of the dark. We get dirty, and the world stays clean. That's the mission.
The campaign delivers several unsettling moments throughout that make the player question just how far they might go. Civilians pop up into the line of fire several times throughout the story, and it's up to the player to keep their trigger finger ready and their aim true in order to not accidentally shoot one. Only in very certain cases will a mission end in failure if a civilian is shot, unlike previous titles in the series. If someone innocent dies because of your actions, you have to think on that. While this aspect of the story does a fantastic job acting as a grown-up reboot of the original series, the story ultimately ends a tad abruptly and the question at the heart of the story remains unanswered. The characters of Farah and Alex seem to be slightly rushed near the end, and General Barkov is an underdeveloped villain. One more mission could have eliminated all those problems, but it's unlikely the story will exist in a vacuum. The ending directly sets up a sequel, and given the critical praise the game has garnered so far, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the next Modern Warfare installment in 2021. So it's very likely that the question at the center of this story is going to be an overarching theme that will get covered in at least one, if not more, sequels. In terms of mission design, this may be the best designed Call of Duty in years, if not of all time. Call of Duty 4 has iconic moments such as Death from Above and One Shot One Kill, and shades of those missions can be found here as well. Instead of just playing the favorites, Infinity Ward takes elements from those missions and enhances them, creating something new. In Call of Duty 4, the famous One Shot One Kill mission has the player at the control of a sniper rifle waiting to assassinate a target in the middle of an illegal arms deal. The player waits for the spider to say when to fire, judging wind direction by a flag waving on a parked vehicle. The player takes a shot, and unless they're not aiming anywhere near the target to miss purposefully, the shot hits 10 out of 10 times. In Modern Warfare, the idea of using flags to judge wind distance with a sniper rifle makes a return, but instead of waiting for a command to shoot, the player must judge for themselves how far out the flag is based on the NPC spotter and how to adjust their shots accordingly. As the mission progresses, players will have to readjust and figure out how to properly shoot several times throughout until the end. Moments like these are sprinkled throughout the campaign, giving veteran Modern Warfare fans nostalgic flashbacks to previous titles in the series, but a new experience at the same time. Besides a rushed ending, the overall story and mission design make the campaign a true return to form for the franchise, and one of the best in its history. Of course, people that buy Call of Duty every year don't often touch the story campaign, as multiplayer is a bigger draw for them. So we're talking about that now. Call of Duty has always been about fast-paced, frenetic gunplay in its multiplayer, and Modern Warfare is no exception when it comes to this. Gone are the jump packs and exoskeletons, replaced with real-world weapons and tactical equipment that special forces nowadays might be using. On the new engine they've built just for this game, the first new engine since the very original Call of Duty, the guns pack an extra punch and look even better. Animations have been improved and help to the satisfying feel of combat, especially when it comes to shotgun pumps and handguns. When the new engine was shown off in the original reveal, the brief moments of first-person gameplay we saw made me think part of the trailer was animated. Handguns in Call of Duty don't fire with that much kick outside of something like a Desert Eagle. In this title, they have much more visible kick than in previous games, making the times when a handgun comes into play all the more crucial for well-placed shots. Due to some of these changes, the devs have made the time to kill much quicker than in earlier games. It's easy to get gunned down in a moment, but if you can manage to outshoot your opponent and beat their aim, you can come down on top in an engagement. Shotguns rule the field currently, as one of them is too overpowered with an incredible range and high damage rate, making one-shot kills easy. Close-up firefights are going to end in disaster if you're facing a shotgun with anything else. Still, when it comes to long range, assault rifles are finally a good go-to option after taking a backseat in the last few games. The M4A1 is a fantastic overall versatile weapon that's awarded as an early unlock but gets used by higher up leveled players. But no matter your playstyle, the vast amount of customization can lead to very creative loadouts for nearly any situation. Weapons can be outfitted with up to 5 new perks to add more versatility to a weapon. Almost no matter what map or mode I was playing, my 141 with a hybrid sight and a 100-round drum mag meant that I didn't need to bother reloading for nearly anything and could keep a corner locked down. Speaking of locking down corners, we need to discuss the maps. The map selection in this game is good for sure, but it's not to the standard of the previous Modern Warfare games. This may simply be because the dev team was wanting a more grounded feeling and so opted not to go crazy with maps like Dome from Modern Warfare 3 or High Rise from Modern Warfare 2. Something that does return from those former games is the occasional spawn traps that will occur. A spawn trap is when one team has the other team backed into a spawn point and keeps them there for easy kills. There are a few maps where this does happen often, and something will need to be done to the spawn system to prevent this from happening in the future. Playing into this is the ability to lean into corners, something that was featured in Call of Duty Ghosts but hasn't seen a return since. This makes it harder to take out a target behind cover and adds to the tactical feel of the game, but can lead to frustrations when it comes to spawn killing. To further complicate matters, kill streaks return to the franchise for the first time in a long time. Score streaks have been Call of Duty's replacement for traditional kill streaks since around Black Ops 2, which meant that a player didn't necessarily have to get a kill to earn a reward. Assists and objectives completed could build to a player's score, and they could receive rewards that way. With kill streaks back, the only way to get rewards now is through kills, meaning UAVs and Juggernaut armor alike are hidden behind 3 or 15 kills. While annoying for some players used to the old system, I prefer this way of doing things as it encourages players to learn how to get better at the game. At the same time, it does have the potential to lead to camping certain spots of the map for easy kills. However, it's my belief that an abundance in camping doesn't say something about the game, it says something about the player base. Of course, some of the modes really do encourage camping. The game comes loaded with multiple modes one would expect to see in the series, such as Team Deathmatch, Search and Destroy, and Domination. A mode returning from older titles in the series is Headquarters, the King of the Hill mode where two teams fight over an objective zone and then must hold it for a certain amount of time, earning points as they do so. The objective usually ends up inside a structure or building of some sort, making this camping the mode. Those out there with an aversion to camping of any sort should probably steer clear, however, it is a useful tool for teaching you how to clear out campers in other game modes. A new mode in the game is Ground War. While the name Ground War has been used in the past, normally to designate matches with 10 to 12 players per team instead of the usual 6-on-6, Ground War is a conquest mode of 64 players in total that capture and defend multiple objectives around the map using vehicles alongside their kill streaks. If this type of combat sounds familiar, that is because it's the main mode found in the Battlefield series and the original Star Wars Battlefront games. So yes, Call of Duty is taking a cue from Battlefield, but the kill streaks really add an interesting element to it. In Battlefield, using a chopper or tank can turn the tide of a match, where in Modern Warfare, these larger vehicles are usually reserved as kill streaks and are on a timer, not to mention often being on rails. The ability to random call in a cruise missile or white phosphorus strike gives the mode a new sense of unpredictability not found in Battlefield. It's much more akin to iconic Star Wars heroes being able to run around on the battlefront, giving troopers a dangerous new threat to worry about at a point in the match they weren't expecting. While these won't necessarily help turn the tide in any one direction should things be evenly matched, their inclusion helps to spice things up and gives lapsed Battlefield players a modern setting to play in as Battlefield 5 continues to pump out the World War II related DLC. Overall, Call of Duty multiplayer hasn't been this fun or engaging in ages. While some old problems have reared their ugly head once more, it helps to make the game more unpredictable and at times fun. The younger generation that keeps complaining about slower movement and camping should have seen COD back during the days of Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops. Man, I feel old. Finally, we come to the rebooted Special Ops, or Spec Ops. This is the most barren mode between the three and the one I've spent the least amount of time with so far. Unlike previous Modern Warfare games that had a selection of missions for a player to attempt to reach a perfect score in, these missions are more open with only one set difficulty: hard. As of this writing, I have yet to successfully complete a Spec Ops mission due to a number of factors, but mostly due to idiotic teammates not wanting to use stealth. This mode is really going to require a group of friends coordinating somehow in order to do properly. There is currently one other mission available, which is a one-off wave-based survival mode that appears tacked on. Presumably more missions of varying objectives will be added as part of the DLC plan, which we'll talk about in a moment. In a controversial move, there's also a PS4 exclusive survival mode. It's available exclusively for PS4 players until October 1st, 2020, probably a mere 2 or 3 weeks before the next Call of Duty game comes out. The mode is very reminiscent of the Modern Warfare 3 survival mode, but somehow less refined than that 2011 version, and is only available on 3 maps. Putting my conspiracy hat on for a moment, it feels like PlayStation and Activision had their exclusive content deal in place when Infinity Ward announced that they weren't going to have any paid DLC in the future and have everything new be for free. Sony wanted to make sure there was something to entice players to buy it on their console. Because it was either a last-minute addition or deliberate sabotage from the devs to try and stymie system exclusivity like this, the mode unfortunately feels half-baked, which is a shame considering the Modern Warfare 3 survival mode was one of my favorite parts of that game. Speaking of the DLC plan, it's time to talk about that. Infinity Ward has stated that there will not be a season pass in the game, falling into line with other recent AAA games trying to keep the player base as cohesive as possible. Someone who owns the game will get all the DLC when it comes out for free day one no matter what system they play on. Instead of a season pass or loot box monetization system, the game will feature a battle pass system similar to what Fortnite has been using.
Tactical nuke incoming!
As of this writing, the system has not been initiated yet, so we don't know how good or bad it will be yet. Infinity Ward has stated that every new weapon or cosmetic item that comes out in the future will be available to unlock without being hidden behind a paywall, but that could still mean it takes 10,000 hours to unlock, virtually meaning you're forced to pay for it if you really want it. Of course, no matter how this turns out, it probably still won't be my biggest problem with the game. That's going to remain how long it takes to install and get the game up and running to even play. The game requires a whopping 150 gigabytes of data on a PS4 in order to install, with a mere 30 of those being on the disc. A 50 gigabyte one-day patch, presumably the campaign, is then required to download and install, followed by another 1 gig patch or two. Once that's all installed, then all 3 play options for Spec Ops must be downloaded separately from a pop-up menu in the game itself. Depending on internet speeds and the age of your console, it could take up to a full day in order to install, so don't expect to be blowing noobs away an hour after picking the game up. When all is said and done though, the day it takes to install the game is still totally worth it for the full package. The game isn't perfect by a long shot, but I haven't been this impressed by a Call of Duty game overall since Modern Warfare 3 back in 2011. The only part of Black Ops 2 I liked was the campaign. Ghost was mediocre overall, I skipped Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3 had a surprisingly stupid fun multiplayer but a horrendous campaign, Infinite Warfare was just bad, Modern Warfare Remastered was fantastic, but that doesn't count since it was a game that had already been made and was just up-res essentially. I skipped World War II and only touched Black Ops 4 during a free weekend trial. I've also never liked zombies, so the last decade almost has been a big letdown for a franchise I once held very dear. For a fan who's been burned out by the franchise for a long time now, this game is a true return to form despite its failings and is worth the full $60. Infinity Ward has proved that when they've got the right people working behind the scenes, they outclass the other two main developers working on Call of Duty year after year. I can't wait to see what they've got up their sleeves for the upcoming DLC in the next game. Things seem shaky for 2020's game, but if this current team is left to their own devices and do what they do best, I'm positive that they can make another fantastic entry in this rebooted series. If you're like me and haven't been happy with the state of Call of Duty for a while now, then I highly recommend that you pick this game up. It does exactly what a reboot should do, make you nostalgic for the original while offering something new and exciting at the same time. I, for one, am certainly excited, and if they let me, I'll be hanging out with Bravo 6 for some time to come.
The rules of engagement have changed. If you can't identify the target, you are the target.